Today, I'm going to tell you a bit what is the ALM Accelerator. I'm not going very deep into why you should have ALM process in your organization. I'm not going to talk about how can you do it manually through the Azure DevOps tasks or GitHub actions. I'm really going to focus on what is ALM Accelerator. So if you are not sure why you should have LM process in your organization, I recommend you that you see a different session that was also in this community that there was other people talking about how to create the YAML pipelines from scratch and so on. I will not focus on that. I'm going to show what we have already done that you don't need to think about it, right? So I'm going to speak a bit about what is ALM Accelerator, how can you leverage a new hands-on lab that we have, and then we do a quick demo, and if you have any questions, then we open the mic and you can ask anything, right? So in terms of Azure DevOps pipelines, there are a lot of tasks that you can build the pipelines yourself. So you can go, you install the Power Platform tools in your Azure DevOps, then you can use the out-of-the-box tasks, but it's up to you to build everything, right? What we created with Accelerator is still in top of Azure DevOps pipeline and GitHub source. So our source of truth is the source that you have in Git. So everything that you do through the Accelerator is going to send through some processes, is going to send to the Git under Azure DevOps, and you will keep the source of your solutions over there. So what ALM Accelerator is, it's an easy way to manage all of these. You don't need to think about pipelines. You don't need to think about the Git source or any Git commands. You do everything through a Canvas app. So if we look to what do we have in the solution when you install the Power Platform solution of the ALM Accelerator is 39 artifacts. And if you go in October after our new release, it is going to be even more. So it's apps, it's cloud flows, connection reference, custom connector to connect to the Azure DevOps, security roles, and tables. This is the main overview of what we have in the solution. So if we look a bit more close of what is in there, we have a Canvas app. You can target multiple people. You can be a new maker, you can be an advanced maker, a team maker. You can have different solutions in the development environment, and you can import the solutions that are already in Git, and you can import to your development environment. So imagine situations that, okay, now I want to start with a new solution. I want to delete everything in my dev environment. I go to the ALM Accelerator. I say, I want to import this project that I'm going to work this week. So that is the notion of clearing everything that you have in your environment and import solutions that are already in the source control. You can push your latest changes from the development environment to the source control by clicking in a button. You can monitor all the process or the progress that is done. You can see if you click in one side and this now is taking the solution from your dev environment and put it in Git, you can control of what the pipelines are doing and so on. We are going to see all of this in a demo afterwards, but I just wanted to give you a bit of understanding what you do with the Canvas and what you do with the model-driven app. With the model-driven app is kind of the back office, right? Is where you, for instance, you could change labels. You don't like the word deploy solution, you could come up with your own word. You don't like commit solution because commit is really like pointing to Git, right? Maybe for your citizen devs or for the people that is going to use the ALM Accelerator, they will prefer to have another word for it. Maybe send solution to source control. I don't know. You can change all the labels that you want, and you can define functions like this user with this profile cannot import solutions or cannot deploy solutions. They can only commit solutions. So you can define what are the permissions of the users in the accelerator. You can also have metadata around like all the configurations that you have done, the Azure DevOps projects, orgs, repository, the deployment steps is really like which steps are going to be part of your ALM process. Right now, by default, what we have is when you go to dev, to test, you pass to validation. So it goes from dev to validation. After we have been able to put the solution in the validation environment, then you can send the solution to test. After test, you can go to prod, but you can create your own steps as you want, right? So here it's just a quick example. This is the user interface. So when I go here and I commit the solution, it comes the normal situations that you provide a note, what is about this commit. And you need to think during the day while you are developing. Maybe you have just done one task, you want to commit, but it's still not in test, right? Is in this area that you just commit. After you deploy to test is when we remove all the code from the dev branch to the test branch. And now I'm introducing some topics around Azure DevOps and Git, because behind the scenes, remember, the source code is in Git, and we are moving that source code from different environments through the pipelines. So over here, when we say we want to commit and we press commit the solution, behind the scenes are running, in this case, the export solution to Git pipeline that is going to run all the tasks that we have in the pipeline to move the solution from the dev brand to the dev environment back to Git. If we look, the model-driven app is, like I said, like the kind of the back office. You have the deployment user settings. You can see everything. You can go and look to all the steps that are configured. So it's kind of where you could see behind the scenes. You have here some access to some tables that you see the information on it, right? As a normal model-driven app, normally you have this functionality. You see here that is where you can specify the labels or the permissions that the user have, and you can share this profile or settings with other users. So imagine the situation that you have someone that's configured everything, and now just give permission to specific profiles to other people inside the organization, right? We have some like 16 cloud flows that are really helping everything that is happening in the Canvas app. So we have cloud flows to get the solution of Canvas, get the Power Pages sites, because we also support that you move Power Pages solutions. We have flows to get the solution flows, search Active Directory groups, because you can configure the group from Canvas. So you could say this app will be shared with this group. So when you deploy to that environment, everything will get configured automatically. Or even other things like search SharePoint lists or get environment solutions, right? Because when you pick a specific environment, we need to get all the solutions in that environment. So for instance, we are using the flow to retrieve those. Connection references, part of best practice. When you have connections that you need in Power Automate, it's always good that you have a connection reference. So when you are setting up the ALM Accelerator, you will configure the connection reference that are going to be used in all the flows that we have in the solution. The custom connector, this one is really important because it's really a pillar for us to communicate with DevOps. So we always communicate through this custom connector that we have created, and we can get like the organizations, the branches, the repositories. We can trigger run pipelines using the custom connector. Some security roles. So we already help you out to define what are the permissions needed by someone that needs to use the ALM Accelerator, or maybe they just need to use the deployment configuration. So there are different permissions associated to these security roles. And tables, of course, everything that you do in the Canvas app will be saved, and we need the Dataverse tables for it. So this was one part of the ALM Accelerator. Is like what the people see when they install the solution. The other part is the ALM Accelerator templates. Is where we have all the YAML of the pipelines to demonstrate end-to-end ALM process. So we have pipelines that use tasks provided by Microsoft, some third-party tasks, and low-level PowerShell scripts. We always try to get out of PowerShell and use as much as possible the pack CLI. When that is not possible, we use PowerShell scripts or other ways. But the main idea is in these pipelines, we support scenarios related to unpacking, sourcing control, building and deploying solutions from one environment to another environment. This pipeline supports the ability to deploy to many environments, but currently we are just demonstrating how can you go from one environment to another in this session. Just for you to know, and as a fun fact, the team that is building this Center of Excellence Starter Kit is using also the ALM Accelerator to create their deployments. So when you get a new version of the Center of Excellence Toolkit, remember that that team used the accelerator to build that. So, and as you might know, it's not a small solution, and it's not a solution with one app and one flow, right? So if it works with the COE toolkit, well, it probably works with your solution too, right? So when we go to the pipelines, what is actually there? So we have a huge number of YAML pipelines here in the beginning, and these pipelines are using templates that are also part of the repository. So in these templates is templates like activate flows, for instance. You might know that when you create a solution and you have flows on it, when you export and when you import that solution to another environment, it's a common task that we need to activate all the flows after the import is done. Well, with the ALM Accelerator, you don't need to do that. You can even control, if you have child flows, you can control the order of the activation. So first it activates the main flow, then it goes to that child flow, and you can customize the order of it. Behind the scenes is all these YAML pipelines that are running, getting that configuration that you have done in Canvas app and applying in the correct order. Another concept here is the concept of hooks. We don't want to restrict the pipelines based on what we have built. We want to give you a possibility for you to build your own customizations. So in these hooks, you have specific places in the templates that we are calling these templates over here that are the hooks templates. Under the hooks, you can do whatever you want. Best practice, what we recommend is create your own custom template put it in this folder in your repository, and call your custom template from the hook pipeline, right? So under here in the template of the hook, you kind of call your own custom template. Let me give you a challenge of a customer that I had in the other day. So the customer has built 500 apps. The apps were built by different people, different skills and styles. But now the customer really wants to adopt a unified style to all the apps. So client was already using the accelerator, and all their apps are solution aware, but they don't want to manually edit 500 apps. Imagine that they want to have all the buttons need to be yellow, right? How they are going to do that? So instead of going to all the different applications, solutions, edit the application, deploy the application, they wanted to have some kind of automation. So in this way, one of the possible solution was, okay, since you are using ALM Accelerator, why not to build a hook? So you go, before the code is committed to Git, you create your own custom template. And in this case, I called it brand enforcement.yaml. What this does is, now I go to the template, right? I get the information of the parameters from that pipeline, and now I can do whatever I want. And remember, I have already the source code in my local file on this agent, right? So I can see everything. So I can go to all the files, I can see the content over there, and I can change the content. So in this example, I'm going to the theme.json, and I'm changing the values of it. So in this case, I'm getting the values of the theme from Power Automate API, or I could go to a Dataverse table, get the information that is stored there and change the theme.json. Or I could just retrieve the full JSON from a Dataverse table and replace it. But you need to be careful. And I don't know how to say this, but this is a big disclaimer, right? There are other ways of doing this, and probably this is not the best practice around theming. And when you are changing the source of the Power App, be careful, right? You are changing something that is not supported. Maybe when Microsoft changed the way that we are saving the app, that source code is going to be changed, and then you need to maintain your code. So you need to be really careful when you go to the result of the end pack of the solution, and when you go to the files and you start to change code directly, right? So don't look at this solution or for this client as best practice, but I just wanted to show you the potential of hooks. And hooks allows you for you to customize anything. Even in situations, for instance, you know that that solution shouldn't have Power Automate. You know that. So how can you guarantee that the person that has access to that solution will never introduce a Power Automate in that solution, for instance? How can you guarantee that? For instance, you could have a hook that before the code is committed, you could check all the artifacts that are in the solution, and you could send the email to someone, say, well, you know what, there is in this solution, there is a Power Automate that maybe is missing a connection reference, right? So you could start to create these automations and make sure that what everyone is doing is based on your guidelines. How can you learn, right? So now you have here a little bit, but how can you, after today or anytime that you have time, how can you go and start learning maybe by yourself? We have created a hands-on lab, and it's really a beginner level lab that that you can configure everything. We explain, like, we have some prerequisites. You need to download the lab, of course. Maybe if you already have a tenant that you would like to use that tenant, but we also explain how can you create a trial tenant. If you already have Azure DevOps in your organization, awesome, use that one. Or we are also explaining how can you create the organization in Azure DevOps. And then we go really like step by step of how to configure everything manually. If you go to the lab in 1 week, all of this will be optional because we have already automated way to create all of this. I'm going to show you a little bit afterwards, but I just wanted to let you know, if you go today, you will see all the manual tasks that you need to do: create and install Azure DevOps, clone the YAML pipelines, create pipeline global variables. I think it's a very good exercise for you to understand what is behind the scenes. But after you already understood, then you will be able to use the wizard that we have created that just do all of this without you doing it. It's automatic way, step by step, right? But still, I believe it's a good exercise if you want to learn. Then we have like 2 exercises here. One is to create a SharePoint site with the issue tracker and import the simple solution that we have. And then the second exercise is to use that solution and actually create a profile and send that solution to Azure DevOps through dev environment to Git, from Git to test environment, from test environment to production environment. So in the hands-on lab, it's step by step, very easy to follow. It's very important for us that if you find any error in the lab or you have any comment, please create the issue. Tell us the feedback is the only way for us to learn. If you plan, maybe there are some partners in the call, and if you want to deliver this workshop to your clients, remember that if you are going to create a trial tenant and a trial org, there is an action that you need to activate the DevOps parallelism, and normally it takes like 24 hours to 48 hours for the team to activate this. So the steps are there in the hands-on lab. You can see everything is described correctly. And another note over here is the lab is really for introduction. There are aspects around the security that should be taken in consideration when you are implementing a production environment. We try to make it as easier as possible. That doesn't mean that is the best practices around security in a production environment. So take also that in consideration. For you to create an issue is really easy. You go to GitHub, to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, you create a new issue, and over there you can create for the Center of Excellence, or you can create for the ALM Accelerator. It can be a issue, can be a question, can be a bug, and so on. We are a relative small team with limited resources, so following all the emails, tweets, WhatsApps, Teams, all these messages from everyone, it's really hard for us. So that's why we really mention this, that we daily look to the issues that we have in GitHub. We are pretty proud of our response time. So I really encourage you to go to GitHub, because maybe the problem that you are having, someone has already describe it, and we already described the workaround or the solution, or maybe your suggestion was already suggested by someone else, then you can vote up, so it increased in the priority for us. So this is a community-based solution, even though that is being driving from PowerCat, but we also hope that you enjoy the kit and you also contribute on this. And just by going and use GitHub issues, it's already a very good contribution. Now the demo. In the demo, we are going to create a new solution in the dev environment. We are going to create a repository for this solution. We are going to commit to the dev branch. We are going to deploy to test. We are going to see that the pipelines are going to be triggered, pull requests are going to be created, and then we are going to deploy to production. Because some of these steps takes 7 minutes or 4 minutes, I've created a simple video that I'm going to follow with you. And afterwards, I can show my desktop. And if you have any questions, we can go directly there. So I have here create a solution. And if you've seen, it's a big blue button. And the background of the app is white. And based on my hooks, we are going to change that. But right now, this is Azure DevOps. I'm going to create a new repository for this solution. So I call it the demo solution, create the repo. Then I go back to the ALM Accelerator in that solution that I want and create a new profile. I could choose the profile that already exists, but I want to create a new one just for demonstration. I need to set up the solution project. So means like where are my pipelines installed? I also, or basically where my solution will be installed. I need to also specify the pipelines projects. That is where the pipelines are installed. And then what is the repository of this specific solution. When I choose this, then will come up the functionality to choose which environment will be my validation environment, which environment will be my test environment, and which environment will be my production environment, right? Remember, every time before we deploy to test, we are deploying to validation. But if you want, you can customize it, and you don't need to have validation if that is something that you don't want. We just use validation just to guarantee that when we are going to deploy to test, we are already sure that there is no lack of dependencies. So if we were able to install it in validation, we are able to install it in test. Now, when we commit, an important aspect here is we are going to create a new branch that all the next commits before you deploy to test will always go to this branch, okay? By default, the way that we are creating the branch is the username of the current user dash the name of the solution. And when we say commit, we can also bypass prepare. But for this situation, I want to prepare the solution. This is something that you do at once. And here is where you are going to define everything related to this solution for the different environments that you have. Validation, test, and production. So if your app contains connection references, contains environment variables, you contain, oops, I clicked it, where I was here. If your solution contains connection reference, environment variables, Canvas apps, you want to define group teams, you have flows, you want to define which flows are going to be active, what is the order, you have custom connectors, you want to configure already the connections and so on, you can do everything from here. And you specify all the settings for all the environments. By just choosing here in the top drop down, you configure, if you have connection reference, you need to have that connection created in the downstream environment, right? That means, let me pause here a bit. That means that when you go to the settings of that app, you can configure and say, okay, I need to create a new connection in the production environment, and you can do that from the Canvas app. After you have configured all the settings, and just a quick note, I just create the repository without going and fix the security and so on. That's why you get like these alerts that since it's the first time that this pipeline is running, the pipeline needs access to the repository. In the lab, we explain step by step how you configure everything, so you don't need to configure it when you run the pipeline. This, even though that this is just running at the first time, you can really avoid even that first time. So now, when I commit a solution, three things happen. There was a new branch created. That was the one that we have said that my dev branch, every commit, it's going to this dev branch. We also created a new branch that we interpret as the test branch, and the test branch is the name of the solution. And we have the main branch. The main branch, when the code goes to main branch, will trigger a pipeline to deploy to production. So the way that it works behind the scenes is when you commit, you are committing to dev branch. When you say that you want to deploy to test, there will be a pull request of all your code here to here. After that code is in the test branch, will trigger a deployment to test. When you say that you want to deploy to test to production, there will be a pull request from the test branch to the main branch, and that will trigger a deployment to production. So now that we have committed, we can go to the dev branch and we can actually see the source code of the solution that we have. In this solution, I only have a Canvas app, and we can go to the screen of the app and we see really the button that exists in the app. So now that the commit is done, we can trigger the deploy. Same thing, you create why are you deploying? Maybe this is connected to a task or to a sprint. You confirm that, and you see over here that you are sending the code from your source branch, that is the dev branch, to your target branch, that is the test branch, right? If you press bypass approval, you don't need to approve the pull request. So now the first thing that we create is a pull request. And when you click in the icon, you will be able to go to Azure DevOps, and you see that you have a pull request that you need to approve. By checking that bypass the approval, this gets automatically approved. So you don't need to come here and approve. This will start right away after you have completed the pull request. I think we also have functionality to approve the pull request, but I'm not completely sure. We are doing something in this release that I think we are doing that, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, when we selected that we want to deploy to test, same thing. The YAML pipeline to deploy to validation is going to be triggered. So all these tasks are already done. You don't need to think about it. We are now deploying to validation. If the deployment to validation is okay, then we trigger the deployment to test. This took like 3 minutes, and now we see that it's green. So if we go back to the solutions and we go to the test environment and we refresh, we don't see it. The solution is not there yet. Why? Because it just ran the validation pipeline, and validation sends the solution to validation, not to test. Now we see here that there is a new pipeline that is going to run, that is going to send the code to the test, right? We just finished to send to validation. Everything was good. Now we triggered the sending to test. So this will trigger the deploy to test of the solution. And after this is done, is really when we have the code in the test branch, and when we have the solution in the test environment. So over here, since we have already approved the pull request, we will see the source code already in the test branch, right? And the development branch, I don't know if you noticed, the development branch has been deleted because we already moved all the code from that dev branch to test. So right now, the source of truth is in the test. So after this one is run, this is just deploying the solution that now is in the Git in the test branch back to the environment in test. So you see here we have tasks to activate the flows, initialize the Git, and so on. So over here, if we go to main, the main is empty because we haven't deployed to production, right? We have Dataverse, Active Directory. Yeah, there are so many things that that we are doing. Now, if this finish soon, so it took 3 minutes. Normally, it's around 3 minutes to go from to deploy to an environment. Now, when we refresh our test environment, we see the solution over there. So the steps that you have to do is go to the accelerator, commit, deploy. And if now let me pause here, you remember that the app that we have built was not like this, was with the white background and the button was blue. And because I have that hooks that changed the source code, we see that that source code was replicated to test, and we are going to see that the same thing is going to be in production. So again, our main is empty. Our test branch has all the code. Now the only thing that we need to do is deploy to production. Deploy to production, we click the deploy button, and we configure over here what is our source branch and what is our target branch. So in this case, we want to go from the test branch to the production branch, that is main. And if we choose here bypass approval, you remember that we are just going to auto approve the pull request. But in this case, I haven't clicked on it, so I need to go here and say I want to approve. So this action. Now I want to complete, means that now I move my, I have also put my code in main from the test branch. So now the deploy to production pipeline will be triggered because there was a pull request that was approved. So new changes on the main branch was done, means that now we'll trigger the pipeline. Now we go to my ALM production environment, and when I go to solutions, we don't see the solution there because it hasn't run yet or hasn't finished to run. So after the deploy to prod pipeline run, we will see the solution over there. So again, this is doing the same thing. All the settings that you have done in Canvas app about that app, if it's connections, if it's environment variables, all of that will be automatically set up. So now we see the code in main. because we have approved the pull request, now it's just like deploying to the production branch, the production environment, I mean. Activate flows, run all of that. Even if you have tests in your Canvas app, we are also able to run those tests. So it's really an end-to-end ALM solution that you can run whatever you want. Cool. Now we go to the production. We refresh the production environment, and we should see the solution deployed, demo solution. And when we go there, we can play the app like we did in the test environment. And everything that happened with the hooks is still done in all the downstream environment. So now if we go to the branches, we see that we have main. Main will contain the latest code, and I only had to do everything from the Canvas app here. The strategy that we have seen was really like from one organization, create a project. In one project, we have one repository. In this repository, we have 3 branches, right? We have the development branch that is connected to my ALM dev branch environment. We have the branch with the name of the solution that is connected to the test environment. And we have our main branch that is connected to the production environment. And all of this is Azure DevOps. The environment is Power Platform, right? The only thing that we had to do to configure this was to set up in the profile. So in the profile is where you selected, this will be my repository, this will be my project, this will be my organization, this will be the environments that this solution is going to have. So this is a strategy of one repository to one solution. But you can have other scenarios. You can have multiple solutions in one repository. So in this case, you see here that I have 2 branches with 2 different names of 2 different solutions that are connected to the same test environment. What happens in main, in production, when you go to the main branch, we are creating one folder per each solution. So when you go to main, you will see A1 folder that contains all the code of the A1 solution, and you will see a A2 folder that contains all the code of the A2 solution. And the same thing in this case, because we have 2 solutions, we have 2 branches for the devs. But in my case, I was using the same dev environment, right? And the only way that you have to do is in the solution repository, under here, you select the same repo. So in different profiles, if you have the same repository, then you are in this strategy, having one repository for multiple solutions. Maybe this is part like, what will be your strategy? Do you want to have one repository per team and maybe have one project per department? So different departments will have different projects, but in each department you have different teams. Each team will put their solutions in the same repository, right? It's different techniques. We support all of these different projects, different repositories, one solution per repository, and so on and so forth. We have also a learning catalog that we publish blogs, videos, documents, is where you also get the link to the lab. It's under the learning. And one thing that I want to mention is the customer story. So if you are willing to share your story with us, we have all the pleasure to help you out creating that story and publish in our in our learning catalog. So if you start to use the Accelerator and you want to share that with us, or if you are a partner and you have used Accelerator with your customers and you want to have a customer story, please let us know and we will be able to help you. So one thing that that you can also put it in your notes, aks.ms, ALM Accelerator for Power Platform Learning, right? AAF for PP Learning. And then you go to the learning catalog and then you have all the links to everything. Thank you so much. Now we can open the floor to questions, can be in Portuguese, English, it's up to you. But if you have any questions, just let me know.